Well, greetings and salutations, all you cool cats and kittens out there. My name's Larry Havorkin Jr. I've been attending Christ Community Church since 1987 and on staff since 93. So I've been part of Christ Community for about a third of its 100 years. Doesn't seem like that long. During that time, I was a student in the high school ministry. And not long after that, I was able to serve in the high school ministry as a high school sponsor for the better part of 10 years. So it's my honor to share the stage or screen with some former CCC youth pastors that I've had the pleasure of serving with and under, and have had a major influence on my life. These are no ordinary youth guys. These are the OGs, the all-stars, the A-team, the Fab Five, whatever you want to call them. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves right now. And we'll kind of do this in order from, who was here the longest, who's started it all with Ed, and then we'll hit Kent, Joe, Phil, and Brad. We'll just go in that order. So guys, just tell us your name, how many years you were at Christ Community, what your role was, and where you live now. What are you doing now? So take it away, Ed.
Hey everyone, and man, happy anniversary to a great church that I still love with all my heart. My name's Ed Noble. I was the youth pastor at Christ Community Church. It was actually called Omaha Gospel Tabernacle when I first came. And from 1984 until 1992. And now I am the lead pastor at a church called Journey Community Church in the San Diego area.
Greetings, and I say the same thing Ed said as far as congratulations on 100 years. Kathy and I absolutely love Christ Community Church, and we were there from 92 to 2000. Ed hired me, and then before I got there, he left, so I don't know if that's a good thing. And I started out as the middle school. Back then it was called the junior high pastor, and then slowly but surely I ended up becoming the associate over all of youth ministry. And we lived there for 8 years. All three of our kids were born in Omaha, so that's a special memory. And now I own my own business. It's called Live It Forward, and it's kind of complicated to try to understand, but I'm basically a professional speaker.
Well, congratulations, Christ Community. Just like Ed and Kent were saying, it's been you guys have been a huge influence on me, and I mean, I am who I am in a large part because of my years at Christ Community. I was there, I guess, early 1994 through 2004, high school and student ministry, and got the pleasure of serving with a few of these guys. And then, of course, Ed would come and speak from time to time at different events that we had. And Larry and I linked arms, and we did ministry together for the whole time I was there, and just such a joy. I went on after leaving Christ Community, and I pastored a church in Arizona for 16 years called Journey Church. Horrible name. It's just a horrible name for a church.
I don't know where you got that from.
So it never works, but I was there for 16 years as a lead pastor, and my good friend Joshua Becker, who also is a Christ Community guy, we started a nonprofit called The Hope Effect, and we're trying to change the way the world cares for orphans. And it's just a great pleasure to be with you here today.
Well, I'm Phil Heumann. I was the middle school pastor starting in 1998 to 2009. And now I'm a pastor in Gretna, Nebraska, of a church called the Gretna Gospel Tabernacle. So I'm glad, also thankful, and happy anniversary, all that kind of stuff.
Hey, and I'm Brad Mock, and I am still hired by Christ Community Church at this given time, going on year 11 here in October. And my role is high school minister, and I'm the young guy on the video. So excited about that. For once, I'm the young student ministry guy, and this is something that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. We'll move on to the second question. What is your fondest memory or thing you were most proud of while you were on staff at Christ Community?
Well, for me, I think something Joe said is it lives in that area. I feel like my best memories are what God did in me and through me through being on staff at Christ Community, serving with the people I serve with, just being a part of a great church with a great history, and a church that hadn't lost its fire. It was an amazing time. And also, like Kent said, here I am, a guy from California, and yet all three of my kids were born in Methodist Hospital right there off Dodge Street. And so, I'll always feel tied in to the community and to the church. And so, I'll say one specific thing. I don't think I really knew how to pray before I came to Christ Community. I mean, of course I prayed and stuff, but I think that that was a huge thing God was doing in my life there. And yeah, so I think that's that my fondest memory lives somewhere in that neighborhood. So.
Right.
Man, that's awesome. I don't know how to follow up that. Mine was just that I got away with all the crazy games and crowd breakers we got away with back in the 90s back then. No, no, probably probably the two fondest memories that I have, or two or three, just real quick. Number one, I just loved serving with Bob Thune and the staff there. He to me, he is the picture of integrity to me. And that's what I take away from my relationship with him and how he led the church and the board too. I just thought, the influence of those people in my life as a young man, very, very, very powerful. And then just when it comes to youth ministry, I think of two things. While I was there, we were really, really strategic about seeing in what we did in programming and how we did things, and making sure we presented the gospel and helping students grow, and just creating a structure there that was really serving that way. And God did something real specific in me, and even in the way that I presented the gospel. Until I got to Christ Community, I think I presented it cheaply and didn't, and it just during my time there really cemented the idea of calling students not just to make a decision, but calling them to really follow Christ and to surrender to his lordship. So those are just some things that, as I was thinking about these conversations, that stuck out to me.
Those are great, and I agree with you. Agree with you both. And I also, how can I not mention Bob Thune when I think of those years? And the longer that you're on the planet, the more important that integrity piece is. And man, Bob, if you're listening, I love you and thank you so much, because you are such a huge part of my life. And I often think of your phrases and encouragements to me in my everyday life. Something that I remember back in the youth group days, and Larry, I think you can really appreciate this, is that the church was really supportive of us really trying to reach people and trying, just about anything to make it happen. And whether that's, trying the crazy fifth quarters on Friday nights where we'd have, American Gladiator rerun type things going on, or we tried that Battle for the Bands and had 1,000 high school kids packed in that place. And, just whatever it took to get the gospel out there and to try to reach students who were far from God. I just am so grateful. And I think it's really one of the reasons why the church is doing so well these days, is that it's always had a heartbeat for those who don't yet know, and those who don't know in Omaha, and those who don't know around the world. And it's always been, such a, I guess, a heartbeat of Christ Community, that, and it's such a heartbeat of God that no wonder that it continues to thrive. And so I'm very grateful for those seasons and those moments where the church really got behind reaching out to students.
For me, Larry, I think when I think back of my time at Christ Community, I can't help but think of the hundreds of volunteers that jumped in and cared and loved on the students. And I remember, I think it may have been Kent that taught me that every middle schooler is asking one question, which is, "Do you love me?" And I mean, just to think back at the hundreds of people who answered the call every week with a resounding, "Yes, you're lovable and you're loved and you're welcome." And so I have lifelong friendships that were built from serving with so many of those loving volunteers.
Good one, Phil.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you guys said. When I think of CCC, it is all the people, kind of like the legends that have come before me, including people that have been on my team. One of them is the guy, Mark Newhouse, who served maybe even before all of you guys in our ministry. And when I first came to the church assigned him as my personal spiritual mentor. And I'd say my personal time with God was like a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe. And Mark just was patient, loved me, and helped me move that to like an 8 or 9 out of 10, where like really everything I do began to flow out of that there wasn't just something I did. And that was Mark's impact in my life and ministry. Yeah, and I think ministry wise, the way the church has supported us in helping our students connect to the larger church more and more over these last 5-10 years, and be a part of what CCC is doing on a whole on Sunday mornings. I know that's been a part of it, but even more so over these last years, we've just tried to sync up and get our kids a lifelong faith through being super connected. And the church has been super open to the saying, man, if that's where God's calling you, we want to support you in that. It's been awesome.
Well, that's awesome, guys. That's just some very profound stuff, and I echo all of that. To switch gears just a little bit, I mean, we get a bunch of youth pastors together. People expect some joy and laughter. And I remember when Bob was here, that was one of our values on staff was joy and laughter.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
I remember that.
yeah, I'm gonna do a little word association game with you. I'm just gonna, you've probably seen this on other talk shows, but I'm just gonna say a word, and then whoever wants to say the first thing that pops into their mind. But just remember, we're in front of a live studio audience, so let's keep it Christian 13 at least. So here we go. All right, the herd.
Oh
God.
man, that was our stomping ground, Phil.
Mhm.
I try to tell, the one thing I tell my kids all the time, they crack up. They're like, "You had the herd?" "Oh yeah, we had the herd, stampede, graze, shearing team, sunrise." We had everything.
Waff oof.
Pick that one, Phil.
It seemed like every year we had to send some kid home for shoplifting from the oof part.
I
Absolutely.
Was that in Kansas City?
yeah.
Yes.
I never got to go on Waff oof, but I always remember Phil having to make a stop in St. Joe to get Dunkin' Donuts coffee.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
All right. I don't know who's gonna get this one, but pro-eapt.
Oh man. That's, that was back when we were trying to teach kids how to have time with God, and yeah, crazy stuff. I was when I was thinking about all you guys, and one of the questions I'm thinking, man, the stuff that all the games revolving around stuff we made kids eat, it's just it's amazing that anybody that none of us lost anybody or put a hole in someone's colon or something. Yeah, that's what the pro-eapt was at the time.
I remember.
Brad, I'm sure you would be fired if you did most of the events that Larry came up with for our retreats back in the day.
Oh.
Things have unfortunately changed a little bit.
Yeah, the lawyers got involved and ruined it.
Probably for the better.
I will say that
Lawyers.
when I was working with Joe, like we did the show Fear Factor years before Fear Factor existed. I mean, we built a cage that we put kids in and dumped 100 mice in on them. I mean,
Oh man,
there's no way you could do that these days, and kids loved it. Like it was a different time, that's for sure.
yes,
Yeah.
they loved it.
They loved it.
All right, 9 to 9 all-nighter.
Oh man, it goes back to something that several of you guys said. It's Christ Community was always a place that if there was something we could do to see lots of kids hear the gospel and come to Christ, I think all of us, it's like, man, we were supported, we were given budget, and people stepped up and volunteered, and yeah, like from all-nighters to fifth quarters to, just yeah, I never felt 1 minute of anybody hesitant to see anything that would help kids find Jesus. It was awesome. That was one of them.
That's where I first discovered Jolt Cola. Was it one of those?
Yeah, that was pre-coffee.
Yeah,
we did those before Starbucks. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to add, thank you guys for doing all those all-nighters, because all our volunteers know what they're like now and they hate them, so we don't have to do them anymore. So thank you.
All right, tonight. Yes, tonight.
Yes,
Oh my
tonight.
gosh.
Phil,
Hated
come
them.
on now, embrace it.
I still hate it.
So just so for people that know, we did, that was something we yelled in middle school. Anytime we wanted to get attention, I would yell tonight, and taught the students to yell back, yes, tonight. And it was so loud. And the funniest thing was always when I had a guest speaker in and I would forget to tell him not to say tonight. And he'd get it to a real serious point and say, and tonight, and they would, yes, tonight. So then I'd have to tell students, don't do that anymore.
No.
There's a 40-year-old watching this right now that just yelled yes tonight in the middle of the congregation. About that. Yeah.
Dude, on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, every once in a while I'm posting something, and again, some 40-year-old former middle schooler writes back and says, tonight, yes, tonight.
Fantastic. All right, just a couple more, then we'll move on to the last question. Bill Meyer.
Oh my gosh. I worked really closely with Bill Meyer. He was actually one of my elders while I was serving as in student ministries. And there's a lot of things to remember about Bill Meyer, and a lot of great things. One of the things that really stands out to me is very early on when I met Bill, he pulled me aside. He said, Joe, I'll do whatever, man. You need me to mop the floor, I'll mop the floor. You want me to do some type of discipline thing, I'm all for it. Whatever you need, I'll do it. And back to that whole thing that Phil was saying, just the heart of the people to serve was just so huge. And Bill, Bill's heart was giant, and I just love him for that.
Yeah, Bill and Terry are still some of our best friends, and I'll tell you what a true friend was. We had a possum. We lived on 50th and Farnham when I was there, and we had this possum just ruining our yard and eating through the wood in our garage. And one night after Sunday night service, I pulled in and the possum was in the garage, and Bill actually lent me his gun to shoot at the possum. It was like 10 o'clock at night after one of our post Sunday night youth events. And I'm very thankful that the story ends there and didn't end up with me in handcuffs. But that's what a true friend does. He'll help you hide the body. So even if it's a possum. So
that's fantastic. All right, one more. OGN.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man, those were great.
Phil, Kent, did you speak at the one in New York? I think that was probably the last one I went on, was New York City at NIAC, Operation Good News.
Yeah,
teaching students how to share the gospel.
Yeah, I know. I went out there a few times with you guys, drove out there, and then when I was the national youth director of the CMA, I know anytime they were doing it at NIAC, I was up there involved. I loved it up there and loved doing that. That was such a great experience for students.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's where I met Rudy, is at OGN, and Rudy Sheptak. And I think I met you there, Joe, when you were you a student there?
I was.
Rudy's group.
I was out in New Jersey or something. Yeah.
Something like that. And one of the most anointed things we've ever done. We did it. We brought it out here to San Diego and did it here at Point Loma Nazarene University for 10, 12 years after post fact. So
Wow. I remember, Kent, you were at that OGN in 97. And one of my fondest memories is me, you, and your brother and Marty sneaking off to the Yankees game.
I forgot about that.
Braves were in town.
mm,
And then, of course, we got stuck in that parking garage and maybe got a little bit of roof damage.
Yeah. I forgot we were having to jump up and down on the bumper and pull it through real slow so that we could get it out of.
Yep.
Oh,
That's good
How
memory.
many miles you think you spent behind the wheel of a 15-passenger van? I mean, all those trips down to Juarez, Mexico, and all the OGNs and life. And I mean, man, we really put the miles on those things.
Oh, yeah.
well, and I know our whole thing was, hey, we wanted students to have extra special things with each move up in ministry. So I don't, this is a rule that I look back on and go, it was the right thing, the right decision, but it always made for pain. We never flew to those Mission Mexico's trip. We drove them all the time. So that was 24 hours of listening to They Might Be Giants all the way through, like for all 24 hours.
mm.
Yeah.
Well, guys, the time has flown by. I mean, I have way more questions, but in order to stay within the parameters that Steve set out for us, I've got one final question before we end this, and that is, what advice or prayer do you have for our current youth ministry, for Brad, and for the future of youth ministry at Christ Community Church?
Well, I guess I'll start. I guess what I would say is, well, whatever got us here is not going to be what gets us there. You know, the times that we're in now are going to call for more God, more power of God. I mean, it's great what we've seen, but there's more to come, and we're going to need more. I think to face what's coming in front of us and to really keep moving the kingdom of God forward in the lives of young people. Yeah, the power of God, man. That's so my advice isn't advice. It's like, forget the advice. There's something new and something bigger and deeper that's ahead of us for us.
Well, it does my heart good just to see Brad as the youth pastor there. I don't know if you guys know this, but I hired him at a church down here in Atlanta. And when I was the national youth director, I was at a church, and this church had gone through 2 youth pastors like within 8 months. And they just asked me to come on. I was just a volunteer in the youth ministry, and hey, will you help us work through this? Long story short, I said, I can pick any guy in the whole CMA that I know to be my kid's youth pastor. And I picked Brad. And so it does my heart good to see Brad at Christ Community doing so well. Probably my biggest thing, and it would piggyback on what Ed just said, is I think if there's a time to be really bold about the truth and bold and just saying it out there and really putting it out there and sharing the gospel, and both the things that comfort people with the gospel, but also the hard side of the gospel. Now is the time. I think people want to see that, that authentic truth of what does it really mean to follow Jesus, not only as your savior, but as your Lord. And so calling students to that, calling families to that, that would probably be my big advice and prayer for that Christ Community would continue to be that kind of church.
Here recently, I just found out that my mentor, when I was going through my ordination, and one of the guys on the staff when I was there, recently passed, Irving Malm. And he, man, that guy was a great influence on me. And I remember when I started preaching, part of my student ministry role took me into preaching in the alternative worship service, it was called back then, in the gym. And I'd get up to preach there, and Irving would catch me in the hallway, or he'd see me in the office, and he'd say, Joe, point him to Jesus, point him to Jesus. And that stuck with me, through the rest of my years, just point him to the one that loves him so much that he would die for him. And don't let your theology get so crowded that you lose track of Jesus in it all. And he's the one that can change their lives. And so just keep pointing them there, whether they come from a family that's always gone to church, or whether they're like me and never went until right before graduating high school. Just point them to Jesus, and he'll lead them forward for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Brad, I got nothing really. My mentor, Teddy Stollard, once said, Brad, in all sincerity, here's the thing. Student ministry is harder than it has ever been. I don't envy you one bit. It is so hard to do what you're doing right now. The students are more stressed out than they've ever been in their lives. And so you need more and better volunteers than you've ever had. And so we'll be praying for you that you get them. And because these students need people in their lives. It's hard, man. It's hard what you're doing. And so I know that we came before you, but you're towing a heavy load, man. And so we're praying for you. We're on your side, man. We love you and respect you. And we're praying for you, man.
Absolutely.
Huge. I love it.
Well, guys, that thus endeth our time here, at least for the recorded part of this. We might carry this conversation on a little bit after this, but I will just thank you all for taking time out of I know everyone's got a busy schedule. We're trying to figure out the best days and times to do this, and we finally landed on one. So thank you so much for being flexible and joining us on this. I know it's going to mean a lot to a whole lot of people watching this, of all different ages, that have either been blessed by the student and youth ministry, been a part of, or served in. So thank you guys so much. And we'll say you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.